Hi, everybody. This is Tom Grisak, and we've got a guest today that I've been wanting to get in front of and ask some questions. This is Chad Collins.
Hello.
Chad is a school board member and also happens to be our neighbor. So I've known Chad for quite a few years. So he told me I could ask all the questions that I don't know, and then we'll fill him in things that he thinks that you guys might want to know about the school board, what they do, how they operate. So thank you so much for being here, Chad.
Absolutely, Tom.
First of all, let's talk about your family, because I've followed you guys through the years. I followed your father. I know your father was a war hero, and tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, so Rick Collins lives in the community, lives in Seis Lagos, not too far from us, actually in the Lovejoy School District, and lost his legs in Vietnam, has had an unbelievable story, a lot of tragedy, but a lot of persistence and being able to persevere through a lot of stuff. So he's been a huge mentor to me and many others, even in our community.
Yeah, I know you said he's a real inspiration to you.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then you actually met Kelly, your wife, in Seis Lagos.
Correct. Yeah, she grew up on the Wiley side of Seis Lagos, where I went to Lovejoy and then Allen back in that day.
And how long have you all been married?
We've been married almost 24 years.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah. So we get married young.
Yeah.
Right out of college. So.
And Chad has 3 kids: Carolyn, the girl, and then Carson and Chief. And tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah, so I'll start with Carson. Carson graduated from Lovejoy High School last year. He's at the University of Tulsa playing football, studying finance and energy management.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
fantastic.
And so he's loving it. We miss him, but he's loving it. And then his younger brother, Chief, is a junior at the high school, involved in a lot of different things, football and fishing. We've got an unbelievable fishing program.
I had no
Lovejoy.
idea there was a fishing team.
Yeah. They've actually won state 2 out of the last 4 years.
How do you win state? I mean, what's the...
It's a culmination. They do tournaments literally from September through May. And so there's one every month throughout the year, with the exception of December. And you really rack up points of the more productive you are per boat. And so they take the top 5 boats from each school district that participates, and you add that up, and so they've done extremely well. And our kids, they earn scholarship money. We've got kids now from Lovejoy that are fishing on college teams.
They offer fishing scholarships?
There's money, and there's big money involved in fishing.
I knew there was a lot of money in it, but I didn't realize they gave scholarships for it.
It's amazing. It's fun. What a great thing for kids to be involved in.
Yeah. And tell us about Carolyn, too.
And then Carolyn, she's in 8th grade right now at Willow Springs Middle School in Lovejoy, and she's big into volleyball and playing basketball right now, and so she's great.
Does she prefer one over the other?
I'd say volleyball right now, and she's in Lovejoy, and volleyball is pretty big in Lovejoy. Yeah. We win a lot of state championships, so it's competitive.
How many have we won now?
I think we're on number 7.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So it's been really an amazing run. I think if I remember right, 7 out of the last 11 years they've won state championships.
How does that happen? I mean, is it a matter of parents being able to have the financial position to send them to other tournaments, or is that what it is?
I think that's definitely a part of it. You've got whenever you have a wealthier community like that was willing to invest in the club, because it's an expensive sport for sure, but they're getting some of the best training and coaching. But really, our high school coaches are unbelievable. And Ryan Mitchell, who came back, he won a bunch of state championships, went to South Lake Carroll, came back, and has done an exceptional job, and just won again this last fall. Yeah. So, I tell you, one of the things, our girls work hard, and the teams look a little different every year. Like this team this year that won, they're not overly tall. I think the tallest maybe around 6'1", where in years past we've had 6'3", 6'4", 6'5". But our coaches do a phenomenal job. We've got great kids and great community support. Right. I think it's one of those things where when you set a high bar, now all these girls coming up, when they walk into the high school, they think we're supposed to win state championships.
Right. So it's a culture, really.
It's a culture. Yeah.
Stop right a second. Okay, I forgot to tell you this. If you hit the table, it'll make that noise. You got to really think about not doing that. Okay, we'll pick it up here. Yeah. Well, that's a great lead into what you actually do. Tell me why you chose to run for the school board. How long have you been on the school board? When is the next election?
So great question. So I have actually been on the school board. Now I'm starting my 11th year, which is
Wow.
pretty pretty far back. Actually, before we even had our first graduating class at Lovejoy High School, I was on the board, and I grew up in the community. Really grew up with a dad, as you mentioned earlier, was all about volunteering and being part of something. And so part of my service orientation, I love service and being able to give back. And so I'm very passionate about kids and education, and then helping a community and really kind of creating a vision. I think that's one of the things our school board through the years has done is really create the vision for where we wanted the district to be.
Right.
And
I forgot to bring up about you too. You've got a little sports history behind you too. Tell us about that.
Well, I practiced football in college. I didn't play a whole lot, practiced a lot in college, but I went to Allen High School and did a lot of sports at Allen High School. Very proud of that time, football and basketball and baseball and track. And back in the day when you could play just about everything if you're capable of. And so I'm honored to be in the Hall of Honor at
are you
Allen
really?
Athletics.
Didn't realize that.
Yeah.
And our superintendent was a quarterback at Out. Were you there at the same time?
He was a senior when I was a freshman.
Okay.
And we actually went into the Hall of Honor the same year, 2015.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah. So it was real, it meant a lot to both of us. We've been friends from high school all the way through adulthood now. And so I'm extremely proud of him, and what an unbelievable person to have leading our district.
He really is. And I won't go into all the details, but we lost our superintendent a couple of years ago, and there was a search. And I think a lot of people really were kind of hoping that the search would turn out the way it did. Tell us about that. How did that process all come about, and what made your decision?
Well, I think one of the things we, as a board, we have a very diverse board, and some of us have a lot of corporate experience in making major hires of executives, things of that nature. And so we wanted to be extremely professional and very thoughtful in exactly how we did our search. So we actually contracted with a leading search firm that works on really high-end school districts around the country, and really real specialized work. And so we brought them in. We did a lot of really polling of our community.
How many candidates were there? Do you remember?
I believe we had 85 candidates that applied.
I thought there might be 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, we had over 80 candidates, and then we narrowed that down to really we were presented with about 10 or 11 that really fit the model of what we wanted. And that model came from the feedback that we got from our community, our teachers, even students. And so we use that to field and build really the profile. And at the end of the day, as we went through, we had some exceptional candidates, folks that were superintendents in other even larger districts that wanted to come to Lovejoy because they feel like Lovejoy's got something special going on. And at the end of the day, we selected Dr. Goddard, who was our initial principal at the high school.
Right.
And he had such an energy about him. But one of the great things about Dr. Goddard was the fact that he had left Lovejoy, meaning he was there in the initial build out of what we really wanted it to look like. But then he left and he was part of 2 other districts. And when you get that lens and being able to see things through other eyes and see, but we're not perfect at Lovejoy. There's things that we could learn and best practices from other places that we could bring. And so we looked at that as a really as an opportunity to bring him back, one, but also leverage the fact that he's seen some things through different lenses.
Well, awesome. The general consensus was when he was announced, I think a lot of people really had hoped he would be the pick, people that don't have any say in it. And he's been tremendous. I mean, you'll see him at every event. He's out there. It seems like he's all in the bottom right-hand corner on a selfie with that big smile.
Yes.
But he's very much behind the kids. He's very proactive. He's out there all the time. He's not the superintendent that sits in the office. And kids love him.
Yeah.
So is that the main function of a school board, is picking a superintendent?
Yeah, I hate to say it, but it's hiring and firing of a superintendent.
Is it?
I mean, at the end of the day, that is the most important thing you'll do is the selection of a superintendent. And then after that, what we do is we build the priorities for the district. So every year we come together as a school board, and there's 7 of us. We come together and we build really what we think are the major priorities for the district for the upcoming year and or longer. And what you don't want to see, and this happens too often in other school districts, is they change the priorities every year. So nobody really knows what really is a priority, or they make 20 priorities. We really try to narrow that down to 4 or 5 things that we think are critically important. If we get those right, we're probably doing some good things for our kids and our community. And so bringing Dr. Goddard in, we built those priorities, and now he's in charge of executing against those priorities. And so our job is not the day-to-day. I'm not going to...
How often do you guys meet? Does school board meet?
Formally, every month. There's at least one formal school board meeting every month. Now, when we get into spring, like now, we'll start to accelerate that a little bit because of budget. So we have to pass a budget by the end of June every year for the following school year. And so we get into, in the next month, we'll start building out what do we think the budget should be for the following year. And which is a really interesting thing in the state of Texas, because sometimes you may not know what you're going to get from the state until the very last minute. So you're basically having to build a budget not knowing what your income is going to be, as an example.
Explain there in the last 2 or 3 years, the state of Texas has made some changes in how they fund the different schools. And I can't even stay on top of it. It seems to change so much. Tell us how you all were impacted with the last change.
Well, so it's really been for the last almost 10 years. It's been so up and down every 2 years because they meet every 2 years. And so we stay very actively involved. Lovejoy specifically, we probably play even more of a role even in Austin. So many of us on the board, we've been down and we actually give testimony into public education committees and helping them understand. A lot of our legislators don't even understand how schools are funded.
Is that right?
Which is actually kind of scary. So we try to do a lot of educating even of our legislators of how the process works.
Do you have an opportunity to meet with them individually?
We do.
Because I know I've seen that we're taking the bus down to Austin. Who wants to go, which is fantastic.
Yeah,
you guys are that proactive.
We've taken hundreds of parents down. And so to understand, even the last legislation that just passed in House Bill 3, there's still even unknowns that the state hasn't actually clarified some of the things that are in it, of what we have to spend money on, what's mandated and what's not, where the funding of that comes from. So to put a very clean stamp on anything that comes out of the state is very tough, actually. But we try to do our best. So what's happened in the last several years, we've actually lost millions in where our tax base, our taxes have increased in as far as percentage wise. But also our net values and appreciation of our homes has gone up. But yet a lot of that money goes to Austin, and we don't get to keep all of it with Robin Hood and things of that nature, what they call recapture. They've actually tried to work to reduce that in this last legislation. So we ended up being a little better than we thought. We did have to make some cuts within Lovejoy, which most of the districts around here did. Plano and Allen and Frisco, and all of us have had to make cuts. But we feel like we're in a pretty good position. We just did a demography study, which shows that we won't grow a whole lot more in Lovejoy, which is also a whole new unique place that we're in. So
I'm going to
now
talk
we can
about
really
that. Hold that thought, because I'm going to ask you some questions about that. Yeah. So, but we're set for 2 years.
Correct.
We know what it is. Okay. And do you recall how many millions we lost? Did you say it was 2 million?
Oh, yeah. Well, over the last 8 years, we probably lost about 7 or 8 million.
Okay.
But we've increased the number of students across that period of time as well, which makes it really a unique thing. So we've had to do things. We've had to be very innovative.
Right.
So, for example, we have a tuition program. So folks that live outside of the district can apply, come into Lovejoy, and with that, they pay a tuition. Very similar
Isn't
to
it like 10 or 12,000?
Yeah, so right now it's 10,000 for high school. Actually, I'll take that back. It's 11,000 for high school,
Okay.
and 8th grade and below is 9,000.
Okay.
So very comparable to a lot of the private schools around
Right.
the area.
And for the viewers that don't know much about Lovejoy, it is a phenomenal district. It's always one of the top three. Every time I look at it, it's up there with Carroll, with Highland Park, and it's just like those are kind of the big three. Not by size, because it's not a large district, but by the quality of education. And those rankings come through the TEA, Texas Education Agency. So it's considered a property wealthy district, and of course those other districts are too. And for good or bad, that's what drives a quality educational system. The parents are behind the kids. They know the importance of education. You go to a PTA meeting or meet the teachers, and every parking lot spot will be taken. We have projects that are always online, like coming online, like Denim and Diamonds, and they could raise $125,000, $150,000 a year sometimes. So those are the parents are really behind the entire school district, and that's really what drives this school district. Lovejoy is the number one. It has been since I've been out here. I've been out here for about 20 years, but it's the number one reason why people have been moving out here all these years. And now with a lot of people think that Fairview is all Lovejoy. It's not. Lucas itself has 6 different school districts, and Fairview has 2. So it's a complicated area. It's a very niche area in a lot of ways, but it's got a phenomenal school district. And for people to pay $10,000 to $12,000 a year to put their kid in a public school is just, to me, that's still mind-boggling, because that's you wouldn't, I don't know what private schools charge, probably $35,000, $40,000 maybe, but even to pay $10,000 or $12,000 to get someone in a public school just speaks volumes about the district. And that's the reason you guys are one of the reasons that it's happening, because of your commitment to excellence.
Well, I think we do some unique things, like our curriculum is completely different. Once you hit middle school and high school in Lovejoy, we do a curriculum that's what I'll call second to none, really preparing kids for harder things after school. We do an 8-period day as an example at the high school. In most high schools in Texas, it's 6-7 periods. Mm-hmm. We have an 8-period day, which allows our kids to do multiple extracurriculars. Mm-hmm. So we're not making them choose if they want to be playing baseball or being in choir. Mm-hmm. At Lovejoy High School, you can do both. Mm-hmm. And so we've created an environment where it's pre-AP, AP for all, but you can double block a math and a science as an example, which means you take them twice a day if there's an area that you may struggle in. Mm-hmm. So we're giving these kids a definite unique advantage of offering them more opportunity during a day, 8 periods, but also helping kids that may need to help close the gap in where they are today and where they could go potentially with their academics. Mm-hmm. And that's been a huge draw. We have about 120 kids right now that are paying tuition, or their parents are paying tuition.
Wow. I remember the first year was around 29, mm-hmm. and I thought that was, wow, that's incredible. Yeah. 120 kids, that's incredible.
Which yields us about $1.5 million. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about those cuts, and if there's $2 million in cuts, now we've been able to reduce that by $1.5 million mm-hmm. by that program. What's great about it is they're not overcrowding our classrooms, because we only put them in the seats that are available, right, if you will, you know, and not causing us to have to add more teachers unnecessarily, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Explain this to me. 2 years ago, when developers came in, there's a real dichotomy between developments that are located in, I'm speaking real estate wise, between say McKinney ISD and Lovejoy ISD. Lovejoy ISD is the draw. And for years, developers have tried to come in and add Lovejoy to their district into Lovejoy. And it was always, the former superintendent told me that they really didn't need any more kids. They didn't really have an interest in bringing in any more kids. So that's changed. And now you actually do need some more kids to offset the losses you're taking by the state. So I still can't imagine they would ever bring another development into Lovejoy that's not in already. McKinney isn't going to let it go, because these are high income neighborhoods. Right. But it's interesting that for many years you didn't want extra kids. You were growing so fast, and now you do need more kids just to help support
And really, we're at a point where that just helps with efficiencies, right? And the more efficient we can be, the more cost, the dollar we can spread across that campus, as an example. And we feel like we're in a position where we won't grow a whole lot more in Lovejoy. The reality, and that's really
now
music.
Let's talk about that. Tell us, you told me the other day that we're at like 93, 94%.
Yeah, right now it looks like we do a demography study that we bring in an expert group that's done it for years, and they have been almost literally spot on with understanding our growth and projections. And so their algorithms, they take what's existing today, they look at undeveloped land, what it's zoned for, take the average. Right now we have outside of Heritage Ranch, which is our retirement community, we average right under one student per household across the district. So if you've got a development and you know that 38 homes are going to go on that development because they're 1 acre or 2 acre lots, you could project that maybe one student out of every household on average from that particular household. So we project out, and as we project out right now, it looks like we're about 93% full.
So if you, assuming that's correct, what would you be at full capacity?
Well,
How many students?
Yeah, we have 4,400 students in our schools today. When that's built out, we're probably right a little over 5,000.
Okay.
So not much more, to be honest with you, and that's really over the next 10 years.
Now you've got a couple of sites. I know you guys have reserved. Do you foresee those having to be built out, or are they just in case? I mean, I don't know what could happen.
Yeah.
They're not going to bring. Let me explain this too about why they can be so precise on prediction. This is a single family home community, with the exception of Heritage Ranch, which is high density, and the reason is they have sewer in Heritage Ranch, and there are reasons that was built in there. But with Fairview, the only sewer that's out there is along Greenville. You'll see apartments along Greenville, and also the retail along Greenville and Stacy Road. So those are the high density areas. Once you move away from those, it all goes to single family. So without sewer, you really can't bring in apartments. And that's why I think they can be pretty precise. Single family homes tend to be lower turnover, more stable communities, and that's, I think, one of the reasons too that Lovejoy has done so well is kids start in the school district and they usually end up in the school district. They know all their friends, they know the teachers, they know the principals. Now I'm sure they know the superintendent too. So it's a very, very unique school district, and that really drives this entire area. It started out here long before all the retail came in. The retail has just helped boost the interest level, but Lovejoy has always been the draw. Now let's talk about, you were here then, I guess, when Lovejoy split away from Allen ISD.
Yeah, I moved right after that.
Okay. And if you don't know that story, that was a very contentious move. And I think to this day, there's still some people that are resentful that Lovejoy separated from Allen, but it worked really best for both districts. Lovejoy was able to follow their path, and then Allen ISD, they've got a fantastic school district too, but they're different. Allen is huge, and they offer every course you can imagine, and they have the star athletes, and it's just totally different. Lovejoy, the thing I like about Lovejoy is that you said you can participate in, you don't have to be an all-star to play football. You don't have to be a great baseball player to play baseball. It's more inclusive of the entire community, I think. So when do you remember when that happened? What year that was?
That was I want to say 2005, 4, somewhere in there, maybe even 2003. I think they voted, and so both Allen residents voted and Lovejoy residents voted, and both agreed to separate at that point in time, and what they would have called a consolidation. So Lovejoy students, the parents used to pay basically a tuition. They pay their taxes, then Lovejoy would turn around and pay a tuition for the students to go to middle school and high school in Allen. And I think there was even my parents at that point in time. We weren't living here, but they would say, you know, we're a little nervous about leaving Allen because Allen was a great school district.
Right.
Myself, I grew up there,
Right.
going to Lovejoy Elementary and then Allen High School, and my sister did as well. But I think over time, people have realized, well, Lovejoy did what it needed to do at the point in
Yes.
time. If you were to take our 1,600 kids in the Lovejoy High School today and put them with Allen's 7,000, we're talking about that's a really big high school.
Right.
And so I think it worked out best for both. Allen, I still bleed blue, is such a great school district and does so many great things for kids. And I think Lovejoy does exceptional work and great things for kids
Right.
also. And
I agree.
at the end of the day, you want kids to find what their passion is and be able to, you know, we want to invest in that passion, whatever it is. And I think even over time, you'll be able to see even Lovejoy will collaborate with Allen ISD on some things where we might not have the economies of scale to be able to provide certain programs, but I think because of Carson College, because of Allen High School, there's an opportunity to do some things that'll be unique that our kids can even, you know, tie in with some of their programs as well.
Right. Well, I'm going to bring up a picture of the Little Red Schoolhouse here, and that was, I think the district started, or that little elementary school was 1917. Don't quote me on that, but I think
That's
it was.
correct. Yep.
And that was the first school here. And then the next school was, I guess it was Hart Elementary.
That's right.
And then the next school was what?
That would have been Sloan Creek.
All right.
And so it was originally built as a middle school.
Okay.
And then we built Willow Springs and Puster about the same time. And we decided to make Sloan Creek an intermediate school. We have found, if you look at whether it's social, looking at the social climate in a school, putting sixth graders with eighth graders sometimes there can be a big difference in that. And so what we found is we put a intermediate school, Sloan Creek, fifth and sixth grade. The feedback has been phenomenal, as it really is in between elementary and middle school. And so it's this nice transition. They're getting more responsibility, but not quite all the responsibilities, to learn. And so it's been a really positive thing in our community to do that. I think you were maybe even going to mention, like, we have some property and what we were possibly going to do with the property that we still have left. Originally, they had purchased property on Estates Parkway for another elementary school, main thoroughfare, and that piece of property, obviously it's an expensive piece of property today, one that we probably wouldn't be able to turn around and purchase today like we likely are able to do in many years ago. And so right now, really, there'll be a lot of study of what do we do with that piece of property. We made a decision, and some of us on the current board of trustees, we made a decision several years ago that it would be more optimal if we added on a little bit to the 3 elementary schools rather than build a whole nother fourth elementary school, which becomes inefficient. Right. And so we made that decision. Now we're sitting on that property. And I think what we really want to do is we're doing strategic planning.
How large is it? How big a tract?
I want to say it's a little over 20 acres.
Okay.
When you have the whole thing. And one of the things that we will do, we'll study what we really want to potentially do with that. We could easily sell the property and then take that money, the capital money, and put it into other investments, or we could sit on that and wait until we possibly need it, because the reality is there's no other land in Lovejoy. Right. So if we ever needed it, or if there was any zoning changes in Lucas, as an example, or Fairview, where we ended up needing a property for an elementary school, you'd want it. I don't likely that won't happen. Right. But there could be a multi-use facility placed there to do, trade, like a trade school. Right. We don't have our own really equine program or ag program in Lovejoy. Yeah. So if we have kids that really want to do that.
Actually, Allen's, what do they call it? It's not Equine Center. They're ag barns. They're right there next to it.
Yes.
So that would be a nice tie-in.
Yeah. So there's things that we don't necessarily want to. If you sell it right away, you basically have written off being able to do anything else in Lovejoy. Right. From a facility standpoint that you may need. And
what's that taxed at? I'm curious. It's not It was probably in ag. What's it taxed at now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not sure.
Do you get a break because the school owns it?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
you don't have to pay taxes on it as a
Okay.
school. Yeah,
Okay.
so
All right.
the city of Lucas, as an example, doesn't.
Okay.
It's exempt.
So you can
Yeah.
sit on it for as long as you want. It's not costing you any money.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And then Blondie June, that was actually, I thought you all were going to build a school there, but I think that would have it would cost a fortune to upgrade
Yeah.
Blondie June and make that.
Yeah, that was before my time on the board when that had been purchased. That may have been purchased 20 years ago or so. And I think at that point in time, I don't think anybody really realized how big it was going to get in the area. And really, you want to put schools on major thoroughfares if at all possible.
Yeah.
So, like you said, it would be an expensive endeavor to build out the roads that would
Right.
need to support school buses and the traffic. And
Right.
so,
Okay. What has been the most contentious project that you guys, the school board, has approved? And you don't have to get into who wanted, who didn't, but
yeah.
what you guys, I'm sure you have arrows slung at you no matter what you decide a lot of times.
Oh,
But what
sure.
has been the biggest debate on something you've approved?
I would say it was probably bond elections over the years. That's probably been the most contentious for sure. I think there's always two sides. I think what we try to do as a board is stick to the facts of understanding.
Right.
Okay, here are the logistics. Here are the number of students that need
Right.
classrooms,
Right.
which also means the number of teachers, things of
Right.
that nature. And you're always wrestling with needs versus wants, right? And so you've got a diverse community, and some people want to put more into athletic facilities. You've got some that want to put more
put a
into.
plug in.
We built a whole wing of our high school, which is for STEM. It's
Okay.
it's an unbelievable facility that is really unlocking the potential of these kids. Our robotics teams, now we've got robotics down into the middle school. In fact, we
Wow,
have an
how
all-female
cool
robotics team
Yeah.
that just competed here
Yeah,
a
they
couple weeks
did.
ago.
My son graduated to Lovejoy, and he
He
didn't.
missed a couple of
Pardon me?
he missed some of those things.
He did.
Yeah.
There wasn't really a strong, at that time, a strong computer science. There was nothing like robotics. So he's, it's been beneficial that you're doing the things that maybe weren't there, 6-7 years
Yeah.
ago. Okay, as far as the school board elections, when are they? How long is the term for school board?
School board is 3-year term.
Okay.
Typically, our elections are in May. So every year we either have 3 that are up for either re-election or open, or 2. And so for this next round in May, I want to say it's 2 positions that we have.
And
open.
who's up? Who is? So are you?
Or 3? I'm sorry, I take that back. There's 3 actually. We appointed somebody recently. We had somebody that retired off of the board after, I want to say 8 or 9 years, and then we appointed somebody this last fall. Now they have to run in the next election by state law, and then they'll have to run again the following May.
Oh wow, they
so
got
we'll
2 in a row.
Yeah.
So are you running again this time?
No, I'm not up for 2 more years.
Okay.
2 years
All
from
right.
May. So
All right.
at that point in time, I may need to retire.
Yeah.
I will have given about 13 years.
And your
on
kids
the
will have been
board.
through the district, so
Yeah.
you've done more than your share.
Wow.
And you went to Tech, right? What was your background? What was your degree in?
I did. I got a marketing degree from Texas Tech and then a
Okay.
master's degree from Cornell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice. And what do you do now?
I'm executive for a healthcare company, pharmaceuticals.
Okay.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people move out to Lovejoy because their kids they enjoy obviously the school district, but they like the open space and their kids. In fact, I remember driving by your place many times, and he had like a little mini football camp out there.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
why his kids got to be such good
Love
football players. You were, even back when they were that tall, they were out there, practicing, and that's something you can't do in the city unless you go to a park.
Well, and Tom, that's one of the reasons why we moved back to this area. Is that's how I grew up. I grew up being able to ride my bike anywhere we wanted to ride, basically through Lucas.
Right.
Growing up there, and I wanted my kids in an environment where they could be outside, they could play in a safe environment, have good schools, and what I always appreciate is, like, even my kids, they're all different. They learn differently. They all have different skill sets, but they found their niche in Lovejoy, luckily, and so I think all of our school board members kind of look through the lens of, okay, what kind of environment can we create that makes it a really inviting environment for every kid where they find their place,
Right.
and they know that they're loved, and from the top down. You talked about Dr. Goddard, and I think he creates that environment, and then hopefully that really starts to penetrate through our teachers and anyone that's involved with our kiddos. And
By the way, let me say this too. As a realtor, I'm going into homes in Lovejoy, well, all the school districts all the time, and I always ask the kids, "How did you like Lovejoy?" And I've never once heard I hated it, I couldn't wait to get out. The worst I ever heard was from maybe 17, 18. They say it was okay. Well, for a 17 or 18-year-old to say it was okay, that speaks volumes. But most of them will say, "Oh, I loved it." I said, "You really liked high school?" So yeah, I loved it. And I said, "Did it help you in college?" And typically they'll say, "Yeah." In fact, I basically, out of my first year, once I went into college, I started it almost as a sophomore because I'd taken the credits that allowed me to bypass a lot of those credits that were required for college. So it really is just such an exceptional school district, and it's not luck and it's not coincidence. That came from the work that you guys do, everybody top down, from the administration to the teachers to the students and especially the parents. So you have built something that's really special. And you said you've got 2 more years.
Yeah, 2 more years in my term, and
so I know we're good for 2 years. And
it'll be good for a lot longer than that. We really do. I think it's the beauty of Lovejoy. You've got people that want to be involved, that really do care, that see the big picture. And what I always stress to people: don't run for the school board if you have one issue or something, maybe even with your kiddo that you didn't like.
Right.
You have to literally look through the lens of all kids in the community, and so put yourself in the position of all parents. And I think we've got a board that really has done that through the years, and I'm very thankful for people I've served with on the board, and I do know that it is a lot of hours, and there's a lot involved, more than just even those monthly meetings.
Right.
But boy, we're doing something that really can have an impact on a child's life,
an entire generations.
And then if you look at on the real estate side, I think when you create an environment where you've got a very inviting school district that is reputable and kids are doing well, a lot of people.
It's not hard to sell homes.
People will tell their friends, "Hey, you need to move from Highland Park to Lovejoy," and we've got a lot of those people that have. And
we do too.
People that land a role in Dallas-Fort Worth and they're looking online, they'll usually will find Lovejoy.
They start with the schools when they're moving in from out of state or even in state, moving into the area. The searches usually always start with the school district, and they'll always see us up there 1, 2, or 3, somewhere in that range. Then they'll come usually meet maybe the superintendent or the principals, and they're always. I've talked with parents. They say that we've been so welcome. They were so nice. They toured the campus with us, and we're really extending a hand. We want people to come that enjoy what we have built here. And from a real estate standpoint, it makes my job so much easier. I don't have to sell the school district. I just got to find something that's affordable. Unfortunately, because prices have gone up here. Lot prices, home prices. It's just become very expensive to live here. And when people get their kids through schools, they don't want to take care of the extra land. They don't want the maintenance. They will usually sell to move out of Lovejoy, but that creates space for someone else to move in. So that's the battle that I'm fighting all the time. But it's a good battle to have. So, Chad, I want to thank you so much for visiting with me, and we appreciate you from a realtor standpoint. I greatly appreciate you from what you've done for the school board and the district. I appreciate you, and for being a neighbor. I appreciate you too.
Appreciate you too.